None of us have access to it. In fact, we're told even members of committees have not seen the final. We're talking about the Constitutional Reform Committee have not seen the final document. So I can't say I know what is in the document and how our submissions and the submissions of other Jamaicans who took time to prepare documents. It's not clear to us how our views are captured in these documents.
But that in itself, Professor Hamilton, isn't that untidy? That we are seeking to, you know, deal with a major issue as this, something that will be a once in our lifetime for so many of us. The last time we saw anything to do with Constitution was in approaching 1962 when we gained independence, and now we are seeking to do a sort of fulsome overall, and these sort of things I'd say is shrouded in secrecy, because shouldn't this document be shared with the people before it goes to the cabinet to sign off on?
Well, we can talk about the entire process, but let's get to the core. What are we talking? We're talking about the people who own this country creating a document about how we want to organize and manage ourselves. That's really what we're talking about. And I think if we start there, it really becomes clearer that if the conception of this document was a conception that focuses on the people of Jamaica and is guided by principles that are well established. Thomas Paine for some time talked about a constitution not as an act of government, but of a people constitutional government. So if we really take that kind of people-centric approach to this constitutional reform, I think we get much different outcomes. And, we have to anchor it on a very simple idea. We're really talking about how we want to organize and manage ourselves in our society. That's really what we're talking about. But we're talking about a democracy, then there are two key things that we're concerned about. One is how we protect our rights and freedom, and the mechanisms of governance. That is important. The mechanisms we use to set up government, the structure of government, and how we do it in a way to ensure good governance. That's really what we're talking about.
Good. So, Prof, as I started, this document that's now sent to the cabinet, we're all of us in Jamaica, apart from those persons who have been members of the committee, and by extension, maybe the wider persons in government, that circle of persons, we don't know what is it. So we don't know if even the idea that you put forward, or the points that you put forward, the points that say JFJ as a civil society group and others, and across the board, are those ideas being encapsulated in this document that's sent to the cabinet? And by virtue of that, how do you think that document should be approached? You believe it should be sent straight to cabinet, or it should have been discussed within the public sphere?
Well, again, Jamaica is not the first country that is putting together a constitutional reform process. Other countries have used the Constitution Assembly, a Citizens Assembly. It's been widespread across their countries so that everybody has an opportunity to understand that we're involved in a process. Now, I think the error started by the way we approached this, because I think if we had approached a much broader based engagement with the society, including our parliament. I mean, our parliamentarians have been excluded. MPs who they are the official representatives of the people of Jamaica, right? Flawed and all, they are who we have. And the question is, why weren't they engaged in every constituency that they represent to conduct this kind of conversation about what the people want, and to simultaneously or together or sequentially, however we agree we want it done, engage the kinds of information sharing so that people understand what this process is about. we want to do two things. We want to share information and deepen understanding and educate people because we understand the system that we have. Many of us have never read the Constitution. We understand those things. But we also want to understand from people's lived experience what it is that they want changed. So for me, if we had started there, then the details of what is in the document are just that, details. But everybody would say, yeah, we have an idea of what is in the document, right? Because we were part of a discussion about, say, land or beach access or, the Senate or the head of state or all of these parts of the Constitution that we are talking about. And so, these rights and freedoms and so on. So it is that knowledge, big knowledge of what this document is about is the starting point. Because, how we get there. Now, we can always agree that, we need a team that is going to put it together technically. And then that's another layer. But at least we understand that process from the get-go. Because we would have agreed that that's how we want our document, the people of Jamaica, want our document to be shaped. We'll agree on the path. We'll agree on the priority, the phasing, the steps. We'll agree on all of that. So it is very clear what would have happened at this point. And let's be clear, we had 2.5 years to do this. This discussion started from 2021.
Indeed.
The minister herself said before she took up office in the new ministry, the discussion had started.
Indeed.
And so at the end of 2021, and so we're talking about 2.5 years. And where are we? And I think this drumbeat, this chorus from the society about the inadequate engagement has been the problem. And part of that is the concern that you have in this program, which is as we engage people, how are we making it very clear that these constitutional issues touch and concern their lives every day? How is that communicated? And that then is the challenge in terms of how we see the Constitution and whether we understand that some of these rights and freedoms that we're talking about are grounded in an economic and political system, a free market system, in which rights like property rights are central.
Absolutely. I chuckled just now, Prof. Hamilton, because, it seems as if you have my script in front of you. Because we understand clearly, we are sensible people. We understand that everything that you do, or most things that you do, you basically have a framework. That is to say, you have a group of people who would have to bring their technical expertise, bring the document together, etc., etc. So we understand exactly what this committee their role would be. But as you so eloquently explained, where is the people in all of this? Because it should be the people's idea that this committee is looking at and see how they bring it all together, so we have a proper document which dovetail into what you just explained, the bread and butter issue of the day. So I want you to read into that now. How does a constitution reform, or a constitution itself, basically reach the people? Where some people are saying, boy, I'm in a business with that now put food on the table. Drill down into that for me, Professor Hamilton, and share with my listeners, the listener in Greenville, Manchester, Hatfield, up in Top Clarendon there, up in West Rural St. Andrew, East Rural St. Andrew, all across Jamaica, what this means to them that we're talking about today, a new constitution, or a constitution generally.
Well, let's drill down from the two main ideas. We're clear that we're talking about how we want to organize and manage ourselves in a society. That's really what the constitutional document is. And if we want to live in a democracy, and I say that, because there are some Jamaicans who have no problem with a strong, in fact, lot of studies have shown that more Jamaicans support a kind of dictatorial approach to making certain decisions than they are about democracy. And perhaps it's because we don't have a deeper understanding of what this democracy is all about.
Yes.
Because it is about those rights and freedoms. And it is about how we want to structure our government to deliver good governance. So as I mentioned earlier with respect to these rights, the right to access our beach is a fundamental right.
Absolutely.
You know, we've heard our Prime Minister for that point in light of the advocacy around.
We also heard the opposition leader said this will be one of his linchpin in terms of his government. So we need to have those things.
And so the bread and butter issues of fisher folks and everybody who make their living closely or on the beach is significant, and they understand that. They may not see it as a constitutional issue, but they understand the rights issue with respect to those bread and butter issues. But perhaps the most important link between the Constitution and the issues that touch and concern Jamaicans are the mechanisms for good governance, which include participation in the decisions that directly affect our lives. And if we think about it through those terms, the things that directly affect our lives are these economic issues, these bread and butter issues, how I make money and how I send my children to school and how I organize the kinds of things.
Housing, a roof over your head.
Yes, exactly. The housing I get and so on and so on. And so the idea of inclusive and equitable decision making is part of the good governance concept. And so we have to ask ourselves, what are those mechanisms? I mean, another part of good governance is accountability. A lot of people talk about accountability. The best estimates we have of the lack of accountability in this country, and this has been going on for many years. It's not just about this government. We're talking about 5 to 7% of GDP, about $100 billion every year, is the estimated cost of corruption.
Indeed.
And therefore, you don't have accountability in the management of our funds. We have a problem. So when we're talking about inclusive, participatory decision making and policy making, we're talking about our voice in setting up the mechanisms of government such that we can minimize the kind of corrupt practices and behaviors that we have. We can deliver the kinds of transparency we want, so that the secret document going to cabinet will not happen, so that we can be efficient and effective in the way we make our decisions, and so on.
Prof, whether it is right or wrong, because we're not basically ascribing motive here. However, one of the big discussion that is in the domain now is the $21 billion and counting on the Cornwall Regional Hospital. Could our constituency being structured in the way that we are duty bound to have these kind of expenditure given to the Jamaican people, and so, and although some of the things that, for example, the document that you have submitted basically seek to get done or to have included?
Remember, we have an auditor general that every year puts a report to Parliament and says this is how the people's money is being spent. Now, all these very thick and a lot of details, and most of us don't have the time to look at it.
Or the ability to go through it.
Absolutely. And so the question is the extent to which the Parliament is functioning the way it ought to ensure that there's adequate oversight of the spending of the people's money. And if not, it starts right there. What are the mechanisms? Again, we're coming down to the Constitution. What are the mechanisms we need to put in place to ensure better oversight? And we have to be talking about not only parliamentary oversight, which is the essence of what is implied in our Section 69, subsection 2 of the Constitution, that says not only does the cabinet have control of the government, but they are accountable to the parliament. And therefore, it begs the question, what are those accountability measures? What are the oversight arrangements we have? Are they adequate? And clearly they're not. They're not, because we know that many of these reports go to subcommittees, they're discussed, and rarely do we see them tabled in Parliament and action taken. And that's really what you want the Oversight Committee to do, to point to the difficulties, cite them, understand them, bring in the society to deepen our understanding of it. Let me say this. Right now, we've relied on the technical capacity of our public servants, especially in these oversight committees, to do the work and to do the analysis for us. We have shut out, because of our constitutional arrangement, the voice of the people in providing additional information to the Parliament with respect to how our money is being spent. So we can get these high-level, important technical analysis, but then how does it affect the people in the communities that you're talking about? So we need an arrangement in Parliament where the people of Jamaica can go to the Parliament and say, you see this spending in that hospital? I can tell you my experience. And that will give more granular details to guide our parliamentarians about the appropriate actions to take, including the legislative arrangements that they need to put in place to fix problems.
Just hold for me. Just hold for me a bit, Professor Hamilton. Let me just take the break. I'll finish with you in 5 minutes on the other side. I beg of you. All right. And indeed, granular, indeed, we are getting right here on this discussion.
We'll be joined by Conrad O'Brien at Newstalk in just a moment as he take a quick commercial break. He's talking to Professor Rosalee Hamilton. It's a simulcast broadcast this morning. We have one more simulcast broadcast to go with Wilfred Radigan and Conrad O'Brien. We're bringing it live on the Mekwi Talk Jeffrey Tavares YouTube channel. It's a simulcast broadcast this morning. 2 simulcast broadcasts from Newstalk 93 FM with Conrad O'Brien. And we're going to join them back in a couple of minutes as they talk about constitution reform. Is Jamaicans ready for constitution reform? Does Jamaicans know the meaning of constitution reform? You know, a lot of Jamaicans are talking about constitution reform, and are they willing to go deeper? And are they willing to learn more about the constitution reform? And does the Constitution Reform Committee have they educated the Jamaican people enough about constitution reform? And when the time comes for referendum, are they willing, are the Jamaican people educated enough to go and vote for a referendum? We're seeing in the Gleaner where the Minister of Legal and Constitutional Affairs is saying that Jamaica is not ready for an elected president. They'll go along with a ceremonial president. If that is the case, then what is the sense of we reforming our constitution? Also, you hear them talking about dual citizenship. The question I have to ask is that if we don't want dual citizenship to sit in the Parliament, are we going to stick to the Commonwealth as we move away from the monarch? Are we willing to sit with the Commonwealth? Because if we're sitting with the Commonwealth, it doesn't make any sense we talk about dual citizenship. It does not make any sense. Now they're asking Mark Golden to declare, is he a British citizen or is he a Jamaican citizen? That is what's rumored around now, that Mark Golden must declare who he is. But there are more questions about there are more questions to be asked, not about Mark Golden, to be asked about this present government. Is Jamaica going to stick with the Privy Council, or are they going to stick with the Caribbean Court of Justice? Is Jamaica last and final court will be London, or will it be in Trinidad and Tobago? We have spent quite amount of money in investing in the Caribbean Court of Justice. Does it make any sense for us to walk away from the Caribbean Court of Justice, or does it make sense for us to stay with the London Court of Appeal? Those are the questions that are on Jamaicans' mind. And one one final question on Jamaican's mind is, if we're going to stay with the London-based Privy Council and also still remain a member of the Commonwealth, then why are you asking about dual citizenship? It makes absolutely no sense. Is either we break fully away from these people, or we stay with them and done. Because there are so many things in the Constitution that need to be amended. And that is why I keep on saying what they need to do is do away with the British Constitution and formulate a brand new Constitution for Jamaica. That's what they need to do. But of course, you know, that's my honest opinion. What is the opinion of other Jamaicans? This morning we're having a simulcast broadcast with Professor Rosalee Hamilton and Conrad O'Brien from New South 93 FM.
Welcome back to Straight Up right here and News Talk 93 FM. We're indeed in the Spotlight segment of the program, and our Spotlight guest today is none other than Professor Rosalee Hamilton, and we're talking about constitutional matters here in Jamaica. You know, of course, you know that the conversation is the whole amendment, the changes, and indeed what seems as if we really need a brand new constitution so we can get the best bang for the buck, and how those dots are connected to the whole people understanding how important the constitution is as it relates to their day-to-day life, what we describe as the bread and butter issue. Prof. Hamilton, welcome back.
Yes.
Welcome back. Let me just segue quickly into this. Your document here talk about, in the conclusion, it talk about Jamaica requires a constitution to change that will enhance and to equip sustainable economic development and so on, and in our move to republic. That if we don't get the constitutional aspect of things right, how will that impact us this talk about us going to becoming a republic? Will that make sense if we don't get the constitutional framework correctly so that we can govern ourselves in the way that, as we started out, the bread and butter issue of our people are addressed?
Yeah, well, you know, it boils down to that. I mean, we've seen that our standard of living is not moving the way it ought to. We know that, you know, our average GDP per capita is 10 times lower than the countries of the developed world that we aim to. And that's our Vision 2030. We want to live at that standard. Mm-hmm. And we have a far way to go. So the economic issues, from my perspective, must be front and center of the changes we want to make. And at the heart of those changes are the legal framework. You know, that is a legal framework we want to put in place, and the Constitution provisions that will enable us to do that. Mm-hmm. I want to make another important point in terms of the specific issues that you talked about, the hospital. I want to draw attention to my colleague's article that was done about where do citizens appeal. And the article she talked about...
Where does citizens?
Yes, appeal.
Oh, yes.
She talked about citizens of Havendale and Meadowbrook.
Yes.
Wanting to appeal to a tribunal under the 2018 Buildings Act. Mm-hmm. But the tribunal don't exist. So citizens are watching and observing all of these high-rise buildings going on and so on and so on, and have no framework in which to appeal. Now, when I read it, it struck me that if we don't seriously look again at our local government arrangement, mm-hmm. we're going to miss the ball, because a lot of the economic development issues are grounded in the arrangement.
That participatory democracy that was bandied about so heavily, you know?
Yes. Mm-hmm. We're talking about still being locked into a kind of 1889 parish council piece of legislation that we've tweaked. And even with the 3 pieces of legislation, we still do not have a framework in which the voice of the Jamaican people can directly affect the decisions at the local government level. Her article is, where do people, who do we talk to? Do we have to go to a minister to get solutions?
Interestingly, Doc, interestingly, Prof, as we talk about that, I saw something pop up that the Minister of Health, say, issued something there, as we mentioned that, but I'm unable to access that just now, but it was just suffice it to say, don't know if it's related to the discussion here that we're having, but I saw where the Minister have basically just tweeted something here.
It's this kind of top-down governance that we're talking about, where all the solutions lie in the handful of people who sit in cabinet. What that means is that we block out, we curtail, we limit the tremendous potential that exists in the hands of the people of Jamaica. And I think if we're serious about governance, we have to see that as priority. We need arrangements at the level of the communities, at the level of the parishes, at the level of a decentralized arrangement in which the decisions are closer to the people. So, we get these mainly people from Kingston who come, and they seem to come with all the answers.
Yes.
And they tell us that this is what needs to happen.
Parachuting.
There's no mechanism. No mechanism. I'll give you one last example. Just last week, I was in Salt River, right?
Yes.
And I saw this young lady who told me about what
you must tell me when you go in those places, Doc.
what her mother did.
Yes.
To create a framework in which people could benefit freely from the minerals from that river.
Salt River, yes.
What was striking in that conversation was she said her mom started by solving a problem of crime in the community.
Oh my
because
God.
People used to go into that the river hole or wherever it was at the time, undeveloped, but it was dark and so on. And they were raping women. Right? There was a lot of that taking place. And she said, I suspect she, as well as the community, decided they want to tackle it, they clean up the place, they expand the place, make it an inviting space for people to come and enjoy. Now, that's the solution that came from the community. Why would that not be supported with the kinds of resources that could come out of participatory budgeting, where the people make decisions directly about their budget, their tax dollars, about solving the problems that are of concern to them? Why can't we move to that system? And I suggest that if the people of Jamaica want that system, we have to make our voices heard. And now is the time in the constitutional reform process.
Absolutely, Prof. I couldn't agree with you more. And that, which leads me to my last question, or maybe two last questions. One, based on what happened so far, in terms of this kind of top-heavy approach, where the conversation were had with the people, but a document had now been sent to the cabinet. Do you believe that basically that's a no-go and the process is basically at ground zero and need a rebirth?
Well, again, I don't take any of these positions as a given and fixed. It's what the people of Jamaica want. You remember, we have to start from the assumption that we own Jamaica. It's our country. And this document that we are creating is our document. And we want, for the first time in the history of Jamaica, to be the authors of that document. And therefore, what happens to that document must be in our hands.
Good.
And I think that if we all take that attitude and we talk to our members of parliament and tell them, listen, when you go to parliament, let them know that we want to see the document. Let them know that we want to get involved in a very fulsome way in making our voices heard. And I think that if enough of us do that, and enough of us use the media and other channels to make their voices heard, then I think we definitely can do better than what we're doing now.
Absolutely. My final question to you, Doc, and you can treat it however you so desire. The media, the fourth estate, has a great role to play. It is the place that's supposed to, apart from things like the Constitution and so, supposed to be the additional layer, that additional compass that basically give, information out there and so on. And let me start from the place that we all will have our political preference. However, to thyself we must be true, and to the people must be true. There is this argument right now that is going on, and as far as I'm concerned, it's basically a tactics of moving the goalposts. And people are looking at what happened in 2007, where persons were sitting in our parliament as strangers because they breached the constitution there and run for office, knowing very well that they were dual citizens in the sense, the real sense of it, showing allegiance to country like America, Venezuela, and so on. So fast forward to 2024, persons are putting Mark Golden position in a similar way that those persons who breached in 2007 did, fully well knows that we operate under a commonwealth system where Mark Golden or anyone is allowed to be, for example, a commonwealth citizen, wherever in the commonwealth you are, and basically occupy office in the Parliament of Jamaica to the highest level of being even prime minister. So if we want to put that as a change, go there, but don't question what happened and twin it to what happened in 2007. What's your take on that, Prof?
I have to say I don't have all the details, but what I want is, when I've heard it, I've listened to some of it. I see it as a distraction, quite frankly, in the context of our constitutional reform process. I want Jamaicans to listen carefully to the discussions that we're hearing from the leadership of our country around the Constitution. We're mired in I want to call it a cascade almost, between views of the two major political parties. We don't see leadership that is trying to bring us together to say we are all going to be affected by this constitution. We're in government today, but we'll be in opposition tomorrow or the next time or the next time. Mm-hmm. At some point, you're not going to stay in government forever. And so all of these changes are going to affect us one way or the other. Let's find a way to unite this nation and ask these tough questions about how we are managing and running this country. The extent and the adequacy of our constitutional arrangements to ensure that we have the accountability that we want, that we're not going to wake up next month, next year, 2 years from now, and hear that our cabinet is giving itself another 200 or 500% increase in salaries, and the people of Jamaica cannot do anything about it.
And people get 20.
Today, people are continuing to struggle to make ends meet. If we want to fix this problem, then let's not get distracted about citizenship. Let's not get distracted about all of these other things that take us away from this fundamental question about the governance of our country, the perpetuation of executive hegemony, right? Mm-hmm. The arrangements in which only the people who sit in the top, the executive in the cabinet, makes the decisions, and they make it in collaboration with a handful of people who can fund the politics.
Absolutely.
That is the reality that we have inherited.
Top brass of the private sector.
And we need to be clear that that's what we're trying to fix. And if we're not clinically clear about that and crystal clear, all of these things become distraction, takes us into the partisan politics that have divided this country for too long, and we will lose another opportunity to create the legal framework to put this country on a different social and economic path.
In 30 seconds, Prof, do you believe that we should look at twinning the whole business of removing from the monarch with the CCJ, so we have a clear-cut removal of the vestiges of what is described as colonialism?
My answer would be, let us create the framework in which the people of Jamaica say that's the approach we want to take. I'm fully on board with that.
Good.
But, this is just, this is again a conversation with the two political parties, right? Let's be clear that we need a framework in which the priorities are set by the people of Jamaica. And to the extent that the Jamaican people see these two issues as priority, great. But that's not obvious in this arrangement, and we need to make it very obvious. We can bring people behind. If this is the leadership of our country, this is what we're saying, let's treat them as priority, and we all agree, great. And if we don't, let's listen to the people of Jamaica and get our priority.
Thanks a lot, Prof. Hamilton. Always a pleasure talking to you. And indeed, we basically put our thoughts out there this morning as it relates to how the people benefit and how the bread and butter issue dovetail into the constitutional arrangement. Thanks a lot, Madam Prof. All the best. God bless you. All right. Good. So there you have it. You fulsome discussion there with Professor Rosalee Hamilton. We really and truly enjoy that discussion there, quite wide-ranging, but at the center of it all, it basically shows what are the things that needed to be done so that our people at the end of the day can be better off. Things like beach access, land reform, education, the food on the table, the whole business of shelter, and all of that sort of things and so on. So, very good. There. All right. Let's continue the program.
I want to say thanks to Conrad O'Brien from New Start 93 FM for allowing us to bring that live. We're going to stand by for 12:10 when we're joined by New Start 93 FM with none other than our good friend Wilfred Radigan, who will be coming on the Mequitor, on the program there with Conrad O'Brien. I want to say thanks to everyone who came on and joined us on the program here. The time has come for all of us to stand up and talk about constitutional reform in this country. It needs to, because what is going on nowadays, it doesn't make any sense for us as a nation to just sit back willy-nilly and allow these people who are governing us to sidetrack and bar us about the entire Constitution. We must demand what we need in the Constitution. And what we need in the Constitution is a government of the people, for the people, and by the people. That's what we need in the Constitution. Join me this evening at 7 o'clock when I'll be speaking to some constitutional experts on the Constitution. And at 12:10 our time, that's 10 minutes after 11 o'clock Jamaica time, Wilfred Ratigan and Conrad O'Brien will be speaking about diaspora affairs, what is going on in the diaspora, regarding maybe all regarding to the Constitution too, and the take on everything that is going on. By the way, it is rumored that majority of the people in the protests a couple of days ago were from other Caribbean nationals. That was not true. You have some people who go around and spread propaganda. But, let us not get into that. They can spread all propaganda they want. The fact of the matter is, the protest was well attended. I see some Jamaicans yesterday in the newspaper protesting in Halfway Tree to free Palestine. I wish I could just get a protest about the corrupt government of Jamaica, the lack of water and the lack of proper health care and the lack of proper education and the lack of security. You think they would take to the streets for that? But what they did was take to the streets about Palestine. I mean, it is all good and dandy for you to do that. But think about what is going on in your own country. and think about the constitutional reform. It's a very important thing. The constitutional reform will affect us and affect our children for years to come. All of us will be gone and leave our children to take up the mantle. So let it be said that at this time in this generation, we stood up, we speak out, and we demand what we need in our constitution. Don't let it be said that we didn't do anything. Let it be said that we stand up for this country. Let it be said that all of us had a right and a part to play in the Constitution. The Gleaner is reporting yesterday that the Minister of Legal and Constitutional Affairs is saying to the people of Jamaica, at this time, it's best you keep a ceremonial president than an elected president. It can't be. It cannot be. And we, the people of this country, must stand up for this. We must stand up for this. I want to say thanks you all for watching us. Join us at 12:10 with another simulcast broadcast with Wilfred Radigan and Conrad O'Brien. Until you hear my voice again, God bless you. And God bless Jamaica land we love. You know, there is a forum coming on Tuesday with some young people. And I think I'm going to bring that live to everyone that we can listen to what the young people is saying. Anyway, have a great afternoon, everyone. A great morning, everyone. Join me at 12:10, 11:10 Jamaica time for another simulcast broadcast with Wilfred Radigan and Conrad O'Brien. Thank you.
When the game gets rough and this life just seems so tough, make we talk, my people, make we talk. When this town becomes an ugly place, don't let it erase the smile from your face. Make we talk, people, make we talk. Conversation is the key, a guiding light for you and me. Spark a talk and you will see. Conflict solver A to Z. World leaders master the art of self-defense just by talk. So people, make we talk. Hey, we're living in a world that on ourselves we must depend. Make we talk.